Hello students, how are you all? I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to discuss chapter 12, reproduction in plants. Let's warm up. Look at this flower, talk about the reproduction parts of the plant. So student, look here. You know about the reproduction part of the plant as we already read about these things. Now let's know about what is reproduction, asexual reproduction, vegetative reproduction, sexual reproduction, seed dispersal. So student, these are the topics we are going to discuss in this chapter. The first we have what is reproduction. Reproduction is defined as a process by which new individual organisms are produced. Reproduction is a fundamental feature of all living organisms including plants. Reproduction is the most important characteristic of living organisms. It is the basic life process that helps maintain the continuity of race. So student, अगर हम बात करते हैं reproduction की, तो आप सबको पता है कि रिप्रोडक्शन हर एक लिविंग बीइंग के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कैरेक्टरिस्टिक है. व्हाई? बिकॉज वो आपकी रेस, आपकी कम्युनिटी को कंटिन्यू करता है. लाइक आप जैसे हम अपने पेरेंट्स के बच्चे हैं, इन फ्यूचर हमारे बच्चे होंगे, तो वो क्या कर रहे हैं, आपकी फैमिली को आगे लेके जा रहे हैं. वैसे ही प्लांट्स का रिप्रोडक्शन भी होगा. सपोज आपने एक जगह रोज देखा, आप कहीं और भी रोज देखते हैं. अगर रिप्रोडक्शन नहीं होगा तो एक प्लांट के बाद सारे रोज जो है खत्म हो जाएंगे. तो ऐसा नहीं होता है, प्लांट्स में भी रिप्रोडक्शन होता है. नाउ वी हैव मोड्स ऑफ रिप्रोडक्शन. Plants exhibit two types of reproduction, namely asexual and sexual. In addition, some plants multiply by vegetative reproduction. So students, अब हम बात कर रहे हैं modes of reproduction की. plants में two type का reproduction होता है, mainly asexual and sexual. लेकिन हम vegetative reproduction भी कुछ plants में होता है. The first we have asexual reproduction. It involves simple division of the plant's body into two or more plants or the formation of a spores under unfavorable conditions. Then we have vegetative reproduction. It is also a type of asexual reproduction in which a cell tissue or a part of plant board develops into a new organism. It is also called vegetative propagation. So student, asexual reproduction क्या होता है? प्लांट्स के किसी पार्ट से हमें नया प्लांट मिल जाता है या वो क्या हो जाते हैं, स्पोर बन जाते हैं. अगर हम वेजिटेटिव रिप्रोडक्शन की बात करें तो हम उसको वेजिटेटिव प्रोपगेशन भी बोलते हैं. उसे भी प्लांट के किसी टिश्यू और किसी पार्ट से हम नया प्लांट जो है ग्रो कर लेते हैं. नाउ वी हैव सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन. It takes place by the formation of gametes. In this case, two parents are needed to give rise to a new individual. So students, अगर हम sexual reproduction की बात करते हैं तो हमें two parents की जरूरत होती है sexual reproduction कराने के लिए. Now we have asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, a single organism is able to reproduce on its own. Common forms of asexual reproduction are budding, fission, fragmentation and spore formation. So student, asexual reproduction में क्या एक single organism reproduce करा सकता है और हमारे पास कुछ forms हैं like budding है, fragmentation है, spore formation है. Now we have budding. Look here students, budding in an asexual method of reproduction. In budding, a small part of body of the parent plant grows out as a bulb-like projection called bud, which then deattaches and becomes a new plant. The new plant grows, matures and produces more buds. If this process continues, a large number of plants are produced in a short. Yeast is a non-green plant. It is a single-celled organism, that means unicellular organism. Yeast reproduces by the process of budding. Let us study how yeast reproduces by budding. Look here students, we have an activity. Activity 1. To observe budding in yeast. Take some yeast powder from a bakery or chemist shop. Place a pinch of yeast powder in a 100 ml beaker having some lukewarm water. Add a spoonful of sugar and shake it well to dissolve sugar. After an hour or so, put a drop of this liquid on a glass slide and observe it under a microscope. You will see the formation of new yeast cells. Draw a simple line diagram of what you see on the slides. Does your diagram match with figure? The new yeast cell grows, matures and produces their yeast cells. If this process continues for some time, a large number of yeast cells are produced in a short time. So student, ऐसे हम क्या करते हैं, yeast की formation होती है किसकी हेल्प से होती है? बडिंग की हेल्प से. अगर हम बडिंग की बात करें तो स्टूडेंट्स क्या होता है, हमारे कुछ प्लांट्स होते हैं उनकी ना एक बड फॉर्मेशन हो जाती है और उस बड फॉर्मेशन से हमें न्यू प्लांट मिल जाता है. गेट इट स्टूडेंट्स? नाउ वी हैव Fission is a process of asexual reproduction in which an individual is divided into two binary fission or more multiple fission. New individual, it is seen in bacteria. So student, fission किस में देखा जाता है? बैक्टीरिया में ज्यादातर आपको मिलेगा. फिजन क्या होता है? एक ऑर्गेनिज्म किस में ब्रेक हो जाता है? मोर देन वन और मोर देन टू. लुक एट दिस पिक्चर. वी हैव स्टूडेंट्स रिप्रोडक्शन इन बैक्टीरिया बाय बाइनरी फिजन. तो यहाँ क्या हो रहा है? एक ऑर्गेनिज्म कितनों में कट हो रहा है? टू में. और वो जो टू न्यू पार्ट्स हैं, दैट इज न्यू ऑर्गेनिजम्स. गेट इट स्टूडेंट्स? नाउ वी हैव फ्रेगमेंटेशन. Spirogyra is a multicellular algae found in freshwater ponds and slow streams. It occurs as a slimy dark green skim in ponds. Their body is filamentous, having a row of rectangular cells lying one above the other. They have a nucleus and a spiral chloroplast. When the filaments of Spirogyra gets broken into small fragments or pieces, the fragments grow into complete organism. First, students, look at this picture. This is Spirogyra. Now, students, look here. We have reproduction in Spirogyra by fragmentation. So, students, fragmentation में क्या होता है? जो हमारा ये Spirogyra है, ये रेक्टेंगुलर शेप पे होता है और ये इसके पीसेस कट हो जाते हैं. मतलब दैट मीन्स एक पार्ट में कट होता है और वो जो पार्ट होता है दैट इज अ न्यू ऑर्गेनिज्म. नाउ वी हैव स्पोर फॉर्मेशन. In the previous chapter, you have read about the mold growing on bread, which is a form of fungus. If a sample of bread mold is examined under a microscope, you will be able to see fine threads called hyphae with knob-like structure called sporangia. Each knob has hundreds of minute spores inside it. When sporangium ripens, it bursts open and disperses the spores into the air. These spores are the asexual reproductive units that can be withstand unfavorable conditions like high temperature and low humidity. Under favorable conditions, a spore germinates into a new mold. Molds can grow on wood, paper, carpet, and food. Spores are also found in ferns. Their leaves are called fronds. The underside of fronds have singular sorus. Each sorus is made up of many sporangia, singular sporangium. Each sporangium produces many spores. When the sporangium matures, it bursts open, dispersing the. So students, अगर हम बात करें स्पोर फॉर्मेशन की, तो स्पोर फॉर्मेशन अनफेवरेबल कंडीशन में ज्यादातर होता है और ये हवा के साथ क्या हो जाते हैं? उड़ जाते हैं और फिर कहीं और जाके स्पोर फॉर्मेशन करते हैं. नाउ वी हैव वेजिटेटिव रिप्रोडक्शन. Vegetative reproduction is a type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves, and buds. These parts are vegetative parts of a plant. So, student, vegetative reproduction में हम क्या करते हैं? Plants के कुछ parts से हम नया plant grow कराते हैं. Therefore, this type of reproduction is called vegetative propagation. All the plant produced by vegetative propagation from one plant are exact copies, clones of the parent plant. You may have ever seen the seeds of potatoes, sugarcane, rose, and bonsevilla. How do these plants reproduce? These plants reproduce vegetatively through their stems. Banana, garlic, mint, grapes, rose, and many other plants are grown by vegetative propagation. These are number of natural as well as artificial method by which plants reproduce vegetatively. So student, vegetative propagation में क्या होता है कि plants के किसी भी part से हम like stem से या फिर leaves से या फिर root से हमें नया plant मिल जाता है. जैसे हमारा sugar cane है, potatoes है, इन सब ये सब किसके through हम reproduce करते हैं? Vegetative propagation. Why are potatoes, ginger, sweet potato, etc. swollen? These plant parts store food in the form of carbohydrates, so they become swollen. This stored food is used by the plants when they multiply by vegetative propagation. Look at these pictures, so students. We have sweet potato and dahlia, tuberous roots of sweet potato and dahlia. Now, students, we have an activity. Look here, activity 2. To study spores of rhizopus under microscope. Collect a slice of bread having bread mold. Rhizopus, take a clean slide with a forceps, put some blackish thread on it. Observe under the microscope. Black colored spores are seen in the sporangum bone on a sporangum pore. Now students, look at this picture. Spores in sporangum of rhizopus. So students, इस तरह की पिक्चर आपको दिखाई देगी माइक्रोस्कोप में. You can perform this activity with the help of your teacher. Now we have methods of natural vegetative. First we have Propagation by roots. Tuberous roots of dahlia, sweet potato, and asparagus become swollen due to food stored in them. In the next season, new plants are produced from these roots. Now we have by stems. The underground stems are modified for vegetative propagation. These are the following steps. The first we have tuber. Potato is an underground stem tuber that is swollen due to food stored in it. It has buds in the depression called the eyes. These buds give rise to new plants. The stored food is used by the new plants to grow. So students, हम स्टेम्स के थ्रू भी प्लांट्स को ग्रो करा सकते हैं. जैसे आपको एग्जांपल दिया गया है पोटैटो का, और पोटैटो क्या होता है, ट्यूबर होता है. लुक एट दिस पिक्चर, वी हैव ट्यूबर ऑफ पोटैटो. देन वी हैव राइजोम. Rhizomes are underground stems that have buds to give rise to new plants. Ginger and turmeric are thick horizontal growing stems in which buds developing into branches which grow upwards into the air and then produce normal green leaves. Roots develop from the lower surface of the underground stems. Look at this picture, we have rhizomes of ginger. Then bulb. It is very short underground stem surrounded by fleshy scale leaves. The scale leaves store food. It is found in onion. In the spring, the stem shoots up from the center of the scale leaves to form new plant. Look at this picture, students. We have bulb of onion. Do you know? The eyes in potato are nodes and buds in the eyes are axillary buds. These buds develop into new plants. A node is a part of a stem at which a leaf arises. Now, by adventitious buds on leaves. Fleshy leaves of Bryophyllum bear adventitious buds in the notches present along their margin. When such a leaf falls on the soil, each bud grows into an independent plant. Plants with fleshy stems such as each produce new plants with their parts get detached from the main plant body. Each detached part can grow into a new plant. So student, इस तरह हम leaves से भी क्या कर सकते हैं, vegetative propagation. Look at this picture, we have adventitious buds on the leaf of the bryophyllum. Now students, we have an activity 3. To observe vegetative reproduction in potato, take a potato and locate depression's eyes on its surface. Each eye has a bud which can grow into a new plant. Cut a few pieces of the potato, each with an eye, bury them in a moist soil. Keep the soil moist by adding water regularly. After a few days, each bud grows into new plant. Likewise, you can also grow ginger or turmeric. So student, इस तरीके से आप पोटैटो को ग्रो करा सकते हैं. ऐसे जिंजर और टर्मरिक को भी हम ग्रो कर सकते हैं. Now we have methods of artificial vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is a simple, fast and less expensive method of plant propagation. It is therefore commonly used in horticulture and agriculture. The techniques used are stem cutting, लेयरिंग, ग्राफ्टिंग एंड टिश्यू कल्चर. सो स्टूडेंट, वेजिटेटिव प्रोपगेशन बहुत कम एक्सपेंसिव है, इसीलिए हॉर्टिकल्चर और एग्रीकल्चर में बहुत ज्यादा यूज किया जाता है. नाउ वी हैव चेक एंड मेड, as we already read about these things, so you can do it by yourself. Vegetative propagation is a common method to develop new varieties of rose, guava, mango, lemon and orange. Now we have advantage of vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation is a more rapid, easier and cheaper method of plant propagation as compared to the raising plants by seeds. Plants grown by vegetative propagation take less time to grow and bear flowers and fruits early. So students, ये easy way होता है और इससे जो हम प्लांट ग्रो करते हैं वो जल्दी जो है फ्रूट्स और फ्लावर्स को bear करते हैं. Now we have the new plants are exact copies of the parent plant as they are produced from single parent. It produces a large number of plants in a short time. Plants grow vegetatively usually need less attention in the early stage than the plants grow from seeds. Plants like banana, seedless grapes, roses, pineapples and dahlias which do not produce nibble seeds can only be grown vegetatively. So student, ये कुछ plants है जो vegetative propagation से ही grow करते हैं. Now we have sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction occurs as a result of fusion of male and female gametes. The gametes are produced in separate male and female reproductive organ which may be present in the same plant or in separate male and female plants. So students, आप sexual जो reproduction होता है वो male and female gametes के fusion की वजह से होता है. Now we have flower, the reproductive part of a plant. Flower is a reproductive part of a plant. The stamens are the male reproductive parts and the pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower. Usually a flower contains both male and female parts. Such flowers are called bisexual flowers, example rose, mustard, etc. The flowers which contain either stamen or pistil are called unisexual flowers, example maize, papaya, cucumber, etc. So students, आपके जो फ्लावर्स होते हैं, कुछ फ्लावर्स में दोनों पार्ट अवेलेबल, दोनों पार्ट जो है होते हैं मेल एंड फीमेल, कुछ फ्लावर्स में सिर्फ एक होता है या तो मेल या फिर फीमेल. Now we have both male and female unisexual flowers may be present in the same plant or in the different plants. Here we have pistil. Pistil is the female reproductive organ of the plant. It is made of three parts: stigma, style, and ovary. The top sticky part of a pistil is called stigma. The middle part of the pistil is called a style. It is a tube which connects stigma to the ovary. The swollen part of the bottom of a pistil is called ovary. So students, these are the different three parts of a pistil. The ovary contains ovules. Ovules produce female gametes. Each ovule contains only female gamete called the egg. The female reproductive organ of the plant called pistil is also known as carpel. Look at this picture, students. We have pistil, female reproductive organ of a plant. Then we have stamen. Stamen is the male reproductive organ of the flower. It has two parts, a filament and an anther. The stalk of a stamen is called filament and the swollen top of a stamen is called anther. Anther contains the pollen grain. Pollen grains contain the male gametes. Pollen grain appear to be yellow powder to us. Pollen grains generally have a tough protective coating which prevents them from drying up. Look at this picture, students. Male reproductive organ with filament. Now we have pollination. The transfer of pollen grains containing male gametes from anther to the stigma of a pistil is known as pollination. This is the first step in the process of seed formation. So student, pollination क्या है? जब मेल और फीमेल gametes का एक दूसरे के साथ क्या होता है? Combination होता है in pistil. Now, types of pollination. Pollination is of two types: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Here, self-pollination. In this process, pollen lands on the stigma of the same flower or of a different flower of the same plant. Now we have cross-pollination. In this case, pollen lands on the stigma of a flower borne on a different plant of the same kind. Now we have agents of pollination. Pollination takes place with the help of some external agents such as wind, water, insects, birds, or mammals. These external agents are called agents of pollination. Here we have pollination by wind. The blowing wind carries pollen grains from on a flower to other flowers and helps in pollination. Wind-pollinated flowers do not have largely brightly colored and scented petals or nectar because they do not have to attract insects. Then we have pollination by insects. Insects like honeybees, wasps, moths, and butterflies visit flowers for nectar. While collecting nectar, some pollen grains stick to the body of these insects. When these insects visit another flower, the pollen grains are brushed off, some of which fall on the stigma. So students, insects क्या करते हैं? वो नेक्टार के लिए फ्लावर के पास जाते हैं और उनकी बॉडी पे कुछ pollen grains stick हो जाते हैं और ऐसे pollination होता है with the help of insects. Now we have examples of insects pollinated flowers are sweet pea, orchids, buttercup, sunflower, etc. Look at this picture. Insect pollination in sweet pea flower. Why are flowers generally so colorful and fragrant? Flowers are colorful and fragrant to attract insects for pollination. Now we have pollination by water. Pollination in aquatic plants is usually carried out by water. The examples of water-pollinated plants are seagrass, hydrilla, wilsonaria. Water-pollinated flowers release their pollen grains into the water. These pollen grains are passively carried to other flowers by water currents for pollination. So student, water से pollination कैसे होता है? वो aquatic plants में ही होता है. Now we have fertilization. On reaching the stigma, pollen grains grows out into a thin pollen tube. It extends through the style, reaches the ovary and enters the ovule. The pollen tube contains two male gametes, one of which fuses with the female gamete or egg and forms a zygote. The process of fusion of a male and female gametes is called fertilization. So students, the male or female gamete का fusion होता है, that is fertilization. After fertilization, following changes occur in the flower. So students, जब fertilization हो जाता है उसके बाद हमारे flower में कुछ change आते हैं. First you have to look at this picture. germination of pollen grains on stigma, and one of them reaches to ovule to carry out fertilization. So student, look at this picture. The fertilized egg, now called zygote, grows into the embryo. The ovary grows into a fruit and other parts of the flower fall off. The ovules develop into seeds. The seed contain an embryo enclosed in a protective seed coat. So student, these are some points we have. Now seed. A seed is a mature ovule that contains embryo and stored food. It is enclosed by a seed coat formed of two coverings. Then we have fruit. A fruit is the seed-bearing structure of a flowering plant. Actually, it is ripened ovary of the plant and seeds are the matured ovules of the fruit. So student, अगर हम fruit की बात करें तो वो matured ovary होती है plant की और seeds matured ovules होते हैं. Fruit may be fleshy and juicy or stony and hard. Mango, apple and orange are fleshy and juicy fruits, whereas almonds and walnuts are stony and hard fruit. Now we have seed dispersal. The main function of the fruit to help the seeds disperse to different places to increase their chances of survival. In case seeds falls at the same place, there would be severe competition for space, sunlight, water and minerals. Therefore, dispersal of seed is beneficial to plant as it ensures that plants are dispersed over wide areas. It avoids overcrowding and competition among the plants for space, sunlight, water and minerals. Seeds and fruit are dispersed by wind, water, animals, etc. Here, dispersal by wind. Some seeds are carried to new place by the wind. Grasses have very light seeds. Dandelion has hairy growth which acts like little parachutes and carries the seeds far away from the parent plant. Mother, ackee and sunflower plants have fruits which are hairy and are blown away to far off places. The seeds then germinate into new plants in that place. सो स्टूडेंट्स, अगर हम बात करते हैं डिस्पर्सल की, सो डिस्पर्सल क्या होता है कि जो आपके सीड्स होते हैं प्लांट के, वो कहीं और किसी और प्लेस पे जाके ग्रो करते हैं. वो एनिमल्स के थ्रू भी होता है. अभी जैसे विंड के थ्रू आपको बताया गया कैसे होता है कि हवा के साथ जो है सीड्स जो है वो चले जाते हैं और किसी नई जगह पे जाकर न्यू प्लांट को जर्मिनेट करते हैं. लुक एट दिस पिक्चर. विंड डिस्पर्सल ऑफ डैंडलियंस. Poppy fruits sway in the wind. This causes the seeds to fall out. Drumstick and maple seeds have wings which help in dispersal. Dispersal by water. Dispersal by water takes place in some aquatic plants and in some which grow near a water body. Seeds of water lily float and thus dispersed by water. The coconut seed. The coconut seed has a tough fibrous covering which has plenty of air inside. This helps the coconut seeds in floating on water. Look at this picture. We have coconut fruit floating on river. Then we have dispersal by animals. Some seeds are dispersed by animals. Such seeds have spines or hooks which cling to the bodies of animals and are carried to long distances as in Exothenia and Urania. Look at this picture. We have Exothenia seeds with hooks. Now, man, animals and birds eat the pulp to the edible part of fleshy fruits and throw their seeds. This helps in their dispersal. The small and undigested seeds come out of their body. The seeds of guava and berries are dispersed this way. Here we have dispersal by explosion. Fruits of balsam, pea, xernium and castor burst with sudden jerks and the seeds get scattered away from the parent plant. So students, these are the different type of dispersal. What we learn in this chapter, now we are going to discuss it in a nutshell. Here we have the production of new individuals from their parents is known as reproduction. Reproduction is the basic life process that helps to maintain the continuity of race. In asexual reproduction, a single organism is able to reproduce on its own. Fission is a process of asexual reproduction in which an individual divides into two or more individuals. Vegetative reproduction is a type of asexual reproduction in which new plants are produced from roots, stems, leaves, and buds. Rhizome is an underground stem that bears pods. Bulb is very short underground stem surrounded by fleshy scale leaves. Flower is the reproductive part of a plant. The stamens are the male reproductive parts and the pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower. Now we have some keywords here. Budding, development of a new individual from a bud-like outgrowth of the body. Then we have fragmentation, development of new individuals from the pieces of body. Then we have gamete, a haploid reproductive cell formed in reproductive organ. Then we have pollen grain, fine particles formed in others that give rise to male gametes. Thank you, students. We will meet again in the next chapter with some interesting concept of science.